Hey there. So today's video, there was something that I learned or heard about from a couple other fellow dungeon masters that I've implemented that is helped me create a game that is more enjoyable for myself and my players. So I want to talk about that today. The idea of that, I'm sure there are many different names for it, but this one is called a rose and a thorn. And basically, it is taking feedback at the end of each session. The rose being a positive feedback, and the thorn being something that could be fixed, or if you want to say negative feedback, something along those lines, but an improvement is what I like to think about it as. So as a dungeon master or game master, in my mind, the goal of what you're doing is to, one, kind of be a rules lawyer and figuring out how the game should be playing or be ran, and then also a facilitator, so facilitating the party on their adventure. I don't like the idea of the dungeon master being against the players. In my mind, I think that that's a very quick way to make people not want to play in your games, but maybe there are some people that really enjoy it, but I know that I don't, and I know that I wouldn't want that as a player either. Because of that, the main goal is to create a campaign that everyone is excited to play in or go through, including yourself. And kind of this feedback of, something positive that players liked and something that can be improved on, for me is a way to easily gauge that. And I personally do it at the end of each session. So for me, I have all of my sessions kind of written out. I do it digitally, so I have a Notion document with all of my sessions and where I think the players are going to go and encounters and that kind of stuff. And then at the very bottom of that, I have my rose and a thorn in big bold letters, so that I know once we get done with that, once we get done with the session and time's up, that'll have that big reminder for me. So this is good for two reasons. For me, having something that the players enjoyed and getting that feedback is great, because then, for you anyways, you're able to see that and hear what they say. And these are the easy ones. They're telling you, hey, I liked, the in-depth character you had that you brought forth at the beginning of the session, or I really enjoy the battle map that you created because it made combat more compelling. Stuff like that is feedback that is really nice, and it's also easy because it's just saying, hey, we want to do more of that thing. I know that some people don't like getting criticism, and I know that a lot of people, my players included, don't enjoy saying something they didn't like or something that they felt could be improved on. So you might have to push people to actually give you an answer, and I would challenge you to be okay with the feedback that you're getting, as not thinking of it as something that you're doing wrong, but thinking about it as something that can make the game more enjoyable for you and your players. Some of the examples of this could be combat was taking a long time. And so the hardest part about the Thorn is turning it into things that you can actionably do to create the improvement that you want to see in the game. So you would have to kind of maybe ask yourself a couple more questions from this after you get the feedback. You don't necessarily need to be going back and forth with your players on this, although you could if you want to do that. And that would probably be the easiest thing, is to be comfortable enough to talk back and forth with the players. But something that you would then have to do as a dungeon master, so say, there was a combat or an encounter and people felt like it was dragging on. So then you need to think of the reasons, like, well, why was this combat dragging on? Is it because people didn't know what they wanted to do before their turn was up? Is it because people didn't know when they were supposed to be going, so they didn't have time to prepare? Was it too many enemies feeling like kind of bogging down the combat? So this will give you a direction to look at. And then if your players don't really know, because they might not know why the combat felt slow, but they might tell you it just felt slow, or it felt long, or however you want to think about it. So that'll give you the arrow. And then if they don't know why, then that's, or can be, part of your job is to kind of go back and think about it, and maybe if people were taking too much time, you can introduce the 30-second rule or a 1 minute rule. So every time it's a player, they get 1 minute on the clock. And if they don't know what they're doing, by the time the counter reaches 0, then you just skip their turn. And I guarantee you, if you skip someone's turn one time, they're going to think faster the next time, because it feels bad to kind of, have your turn skipped, but just kind of as an example. So yeah, it'll give you a direction, and then you need to kind of hone in. So another example that came from one of my players is they felt like things were fun, but it felt almost too, I don't want to say railroaded, but it felt like they needed, or they knew what they needed to do. And so they went to the place, they did the thing, and then they got done with the thing. And one of my players said, this is really nice that we have, we know what we have to do, and we go and we do the thing, but I want it to feel more real, like maybe there's someone else that will come up to us in between then. And so it's not so go here, do this, go there, do that kind of thing. And so for me, because I want to be creating this campaign and whatnot, that's a way for me to take that, and then it can be okay, so now I know that it could be interesting to have some sort of dice table, perhaps, or a random encounter table, that they don't necessarily need to be encounters, but maybe it'll be because we're playing in a detective campaign, maybe someone comes up with a petty crime or something that they, need help with, or that they want help with, or something along those lines. So that's giving me some ideas to think about how can I add some extra, little bit on top to make them feel like this world is kind of more alive and less railroaded, I guess. We'll just use that for simplification sake. So for me, I've learned a lot because very quickly, you know, the other rule I have is you can't repeat what other people said. So you have to give me a new criticism or a new thing that you enjoyed. And it might be hard for people, but I would implore you to push your players a little bit. And if someone really doesn't want to answer, then I think that's okay. But for me and all of my friends that I play with, you can push a little bit and be like, can you give me a little more? Because I want to make this more entertaining. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Like it can be a small thing like, oh, I really liked that cool magic item that, was in the shop. Or I really liked the description that you gave on this building, or, something like that. Like it doesn't need to be this huge monumental thing. But I challenge all my players to give me at least a little bit of something so that I have something to do for next session. And then it's also nice because then you can go back through your Rose and Thorns to see, are these things that I'm still doing or are they not? And go from there. So if you are a Dungeon Master and you aren't doing some sort of feedback, I think that it is very important to do something like that so you get an idea of what your players like and don't like. And there might be things that they don't like that you really like, and then maybe it'll be finding a balance of those. Or if you really wanted to, you could just ignore them and, say, hey, well, this is really important, so I'm not going to think too much of it. However, if you are in that area, I would highly task you with trying to make it more enjoyable, because I think that there's always going to be a compromise that you and your players can come to that will make both people feel good about the decisions and about the campaign that you're running, because in the end, that's all that should matter in my mind is everyone having fun and is everyone enjoying the game that we're playing. So that's my little thought for today. And I will catch you tomorrow. See you.